Hi guys, it's Isa. So, there's been a lot of fantasy new releases this year, and I'm here to tell you what's my opinion and a spoiler free version of 6 of them. I will divide this in 2 buckets. The first one is books that are the first in the series, and the second one is sequels of ongoing fantasy books. Starting with the new series, we will start with The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This is a Chinese inspired story. In terms of setting, we will have this very whimsical environment. I thought that the majority of this book will happen beneath the sea, but it turns out that beneath the sea there's also kind of like another world where not everything is filled with water, and so we will still have like different houses, gardens, and all of these Chinese inspired mythology will also live there, so it's a very vivid. In terms of tropes, we will have a quest. We will have also kind of a sacrifice kind of story. It's not even a chosen one. It's kind of like an anti-hero that turns out to be kind of like in the situation and now needs to face it. It's a very plot-driven story. It was really fast. I almost read it in one setting, like
not really, but it's the kind of book that can go through that.
There's a lot of dialogue and there's kind of like these very vivid situations, and you go one to another, and it's really easy to get yourself lost in this book because the story, it's cozy. For me, it's a book that it's cozy. We will follow the story of our main girl who lives in this village in which they are suffering greatly from sea storms. It seems that the sea god is mad with them, and that every now and then he is kind of raining war upon them, and a lot of people it's dying as a result. So the people decided that the way to ensure that this god is happy is to deliver or sacrifice every year a bride to him, in the hopes of this god finding the perfect human bride and then he forgiven them. That's how the story starts, with our girl not being the selected sacrifice, but actually being kind of like
the sister of the brother that is engaged with the one that is about to be sacrificed. So she decides to do this sacrifice because she really wants to save her brother the pain.
And she arrives in this kind of temple beneath the sea, and she just sees the sea dragon that is asleep. However, as soon as she gets there, she also loses her voice, and so she's now kind of in this path of one, recovering her voice and recovering kind of her soul, and then also saving the sea god. However, this story will turn to be so different from what it appears. She will go through the different houses, she will create unexpected friendships, she will fall in love. It really feels as a young adult story, but if you are in that mindset, it's a book that I really recommend. Then we go to The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which it's also Chinese inspired, and this is actually kind of like a retelling of a fairy tale. In terms of setting, it's gonna be one of the most vivid stories that you will see. It has so much different elements, so many different settings. All of them are described in such a beautiful way, from the moon, which is the point in which our characters start, to the heaven realm, to some caves with dragons, to, you know, like mountains. In terms of tropes, we will have a little bit of becoming a warrior, a training, a chosen one. We will have a love triangle in here, and we will also have kind of a grown-up story. This story follows our main girl, as she is the daughter of the moon goddess, and this moon goddess wasn't supposed to have a daughter, and so she has been kind of like a secret from everyone, and she has been concealing her powers for a lot of time, and one day she cannot escape it anymore, and she just displays these powers, endangering her mother, and this results in her fleeing the moon and in this path of ensuring that her mom is alright. But in order to ensure this, she will need to start training, gain the favor of the realms, and hopefully gain a favor from the emperor in which he can save her mom. The thing is that in this world, we will see has all of these characters are immortal, and so the time span, it's a little bit weird because we will see through the different chapters how our main character advances, and she advances and starts being kind of like a teenager, and then, you know, like fast forward 10 years have passed, fast forward 20 years have passed, this kind of vibe. And so yes, they are immortal, so for them time doesn't really matter, but at the same time a lot is happening. So it's this kind of like blend between a character driven and a plot driven story. It definitely leans more towards the plot driven, but you will also see how the character is growing up. This book really worked for me. I thought that the quest was fantastic. How the different characters were playing out was also fantastic. It has a lot of twists and turns that I wasn't really expecting and that were very pleasant. The only thing maybe that didn't made it for me is how it seems to be like just time travel in a way. It was like I really need to go to this dragon to do this, and then the next page they are there. And so it is a quest, but it is not a quest. But anyway, I really encourage you to read it. It's gathering fantastic reviews also in Goodreads. Just bear in mind that it's not perfect. Okay, then we move to another story, which is a new debut, and this is 100% young adult, and it's only a monster. First, let's take a moment to acknowledge how enticing and very beautiful this book cover is.
It really clicked for me.
I understand why this not necessarily clicks with a lot of people, mainly because of the young adult element and mainly because how it's been pitched. It's very different to what the book holds, so I will try to explain it in a way that explains better the story without really getting into the details, because I thought that discovering them were really interesting. But in terms of setting, this is almost a urban fantasy story, and this story is supposed to be kind of paranormal because it's posed as monsters, right, fighting a monster hunter, but it actually isn't. So I don't think that's kind of like a trope being here. This is more of a chosen one. It's more also of a quest. It has an element of time travel, and overall it's more on how to cope with a situation that has very greatly get out of hand. Very plot driven. There's interesting characters. There's a hint of a love triangle, but there's not really a lot of going into the details of how the different characters feel, so definitely more plot driven. And this story will follow our main girl. She is half human, half monster, and she comes from this lineage of monsters. However, she doesn't really know what being a monster means. And one day she just discovers that she has time traveled. And when discussing this with her family, she discovers that that's what monsters do. They are kind of like regular people. The only thing is that they have the ability to steal time from humans, and they can use it to time travel. They need to steal as much time as they need to travel into the past. So you can see already how quickly this can become evil characters, right? How if they want to travel 2 years in the past, they will need to steal 2 years from one person, and they are doing it. They are traveling way into the past. Something happens right at the beginning that triggers a set of events that will put our character and other characters in the past, in them trying to fix what is happening. But in order to do so, they will need to face a lot of things. They will need to run away from this person that is hunting them, and we will discover the different houses of monsters.
This was fantastic.
Okay, I will also, I promise, talk about Gallant as soon as I read it. I'm halfway through, so just hang in there. I will come back. So far, see how amazing this is. Hi, quick catch up. I already finished the Gallant and I loved it. It's a weird story. Classic B. Schwab. It's a story that it's supposed to be read on a rainy day. I'm surprised it is not an autumn release. And this story, it's mainly talking about this girl that lives in an orphanage and she cannot speak. The only thing that she has is her mom's diary, where she sees how her mom is losing her mind. However, one day she receives a letter inviting her to go to Gallant and finally meet her family. And as you can imagine, when she arrives, a set of events unravel that will place her as the keystone of something that is happening between two worlds, because it seems that Gallant is the place where the Shadowland and also the real world unravel, and that's why we see Gallant, but also we see other Gallant. It's a story that honestly, it's beautiful in the wrong way. It's scary. It gave me goosebumps. It almost reads as middle grade, but in this way in which you're following children, you're following a girl embracing her family, but the things that happen, are creepy, are weird, and it's written in a way that it just shocks you. It has some scenes that really shocked me. The pacing was just on point. It was slow at times, but then it was very plot driven at other times, and I really, really enjoy this. Alright, and then we move to the category of sequels, and we have two that are very popular. The first one is House of Sky and Breath, which is book 2 in the Crescent City world. It will kick off almost after the events, like some time has passed, and we will see our main characters, trying to lay low, but they will very quickly find trouble, and the story will repeat a little bit the elements that worked in Crescent City 1. So it will also be kind of like a thriller, kind of mystery story, the characters trying to figure out something, chasing someone. In terms of tropes, this will continue to be kind of like a chosen one story. We will see a lot of friendship, a lot of family found stories, which are classic with Sarah J Maas. I actually did a spoiler-free review of this book. If you want to get into more detail, I will link it down below. And it will be slow paced, and it will be kind of like, plot driven, but slow plot driven. There are highlights to this book, obviously, which mainly for me was Rune, and there's introduction of all the characters that as well were very, very interesting. And so this book will mainly be finding this kid, trying to lay low at the same time, but it's still a war, it's unraveling, and we will also see how Bryce needs to face this new situation where everyone knows that she is really powerful and in fact has more power than the king of the Fae. It's fulfilling, but at the same time there were things that didn't work as much for me. I think that if you like the story, you need to continue with it, but it was a little bit slow paced for me. It was inframpy. The end though, it's a cliffhanger. Like the last 100 pages were very amazing. I really love them, but the rest of the book, it really took me a while to read. And then we conclude with The War of Two Queens, book 4 in the From Blood and Ash series. I did as well a spoiler free and then spoiler video, so I will link it down below if you want to get into more details. But this book I really enjoyed. It has a lot of controversy. Either way, this picks right after the events of book 3, with Cass being held by Isbeth and Poppy just having this massive amount of dragons and trying to kill Isbeth and get Castile back. And this story will mainly be that. There's supposed to be this war between the two queens, and that it's also kind of like a threat that it's happening, but the main threat is recovering Cass. There's a huge thing that it's new here, which for me was having the point of view of Castile, and so we will have a dual point of view. We'll have Castile and we will have Poppy. When the story is of Castile, we'll see how he is struggling, dealing with situations, and how also he sees Poppy. And then when we have Poppy, we'll see her and Kieran getting into, Castile and saving him as they are running through the different villages and they are kind of like conquering them. We will also see a lot of Poppy getting into her powers and her being a little bit more of a grey character as a result of her being in this a very stressful situation, as well as being very new to her powers. The love triangle element, it's a little bit higher, as well as like the chosen one trope, which was massive in here. But well, I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's slow. It's slow, like a lot happens, but not much that for me links to the main thread of the story. However, if you have already read what happens and that it's the source of the controversy and you feel this won't do it for you, then don't go and read it. And if you feel that it's something that you won't mind, then go. You do you, right? Okay, and that was it for today. I really hope you liked this video. If you want to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to the channel. I publish bookish content every Tuesday and Friday for you to enjoy, and I hope to see you soon in all the videos. Happy reading! Bye!